An illegal immigrant has been charged with the murder of 22-year-old Georgia nursing student Laken Riley.
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp now demanding answers from the Biden administration on the killer's immigration status, writing, quote, "These tragedies are not unique to Georgia. Federal action to secure the border is the only way to holistically address this ongoing crisis and ensure Laken Riley's horrible fate is not replicated across the country."
Governor Kemp joins us now this morning on Fox & Friends. Governor Kemp, thanks for being with us this morning. We, of course, want to get your thoughts on this horrific crime. I also don't want to presume, but I think it's probably reasonable you have some information that not all of us would have access to. And I'm just curious, have you at this point heard what could have been this killer's motive? It does seem, it's been described as a crime of opportunity, but it also does seem somewhat random on the campus of the University of Georgia. What was, to your knowledge, driving this criminal?
Well, first of all, I just want to offer my condolences, thoughts, and prayers to Laken's family. I talked to his parents, John and Allison, last night. As you can imagine, they are just struck with grief. They're heartbroken, and they're also, like I am, they're upset and they're mad and outraged at this incident that happened. You know, I don't really know too much about the criminal investigation. I'm letting the locals handle that. We put a lot of resources with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to be able to help them do that. From everything we know, this was just a random, happening at this point in time. Don't believe it was targeted, but I'm not positive on that. I think we need to let the investigation continue. I mean, the good thing is local law enforcement working with state resources got this guy off the street and got him locked up. And now we just got to search for answers. And that's the thing that's so frustrating about this, guys, is this is what we've been asking for. And this is what we've been talking about for over 2 years now. And in a recent September letter that the Republican governors wrote to the president and the administration, who are these people? Where are you sending them? And we have yet to receive that information. And now something like this happens.
Has anyone from the administration reached out to you?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't heard anything, especially since we sent the letter. But as you know, I've made 5 trips to the border like a lot of other Republican governors. We've raised the issue of the problems with an unsecure southern border for well over 2 years now, really at the start of the Biden administration, because the change in policies that have led us to where we are, where we now have millions of people, 7.5, 8.5, however many million people that have come into our country. And then you have people like these 2 individuals that came into the country and then committed crimes, and nobody was notified of those. And why were they not sent back? Why are we allowing people to come here that are not U.S. citizens and break our laws and then not send them back home? I mean, it's so frustrating. I mean, this individual, from what I've heard with rumors that are leaking, was supposedly supposed to be in New York. These are the answers that we need to get from the Biden administration.
Governor, I mean, being the governor of a state's a very powerful position, but you're also at the whims of the federal government at this point. What can you do if they're going to let him go at the border, if they're going to let him go in New York City after he made his way up there, then he makes his way down to your state? I mean, are you basically defenseless if the nation is unwilling to enforce any of its laws? I mean, how are you to know that this guy's there or what his intentions might be?
Well, that's the point, and that's the point that I, along with a lot of other people, have been making now that every state is a border state. I mean, we are beyond frustrated. I mean, you look at what Greg Abbott's doing. He's having to secure his own border at the state. I mean, the Democrats are mad at him for doing that, but he's had his last straw. The people of Texas have. I mean, we've had National Guard at the presence at the southern border since 2019. We're going to send more resources down there. But we can only help if you have a governor of a border state that's willing to do that. I mean, this is a federal issue. This is an issue that the president can take action on. And I know he's trying to blame, inaction in Congress. That is passing the buck. We know that there's things that he can do. The Republican governors that were at the border just weeks ago stand ready to help him do that. We stand ready to send National Guard resources, and let's secure our border and make sure this doesn't happen again. But also they need to notify us, where are these individuals? Where are these 7, 8 8.5 million individuals that have come in our country. Where are they? What cities are they in? How are we tracking them? How many of them have committed crimes? Is it going to lead to another violent crime or murder like in this instance?
And you can't deport him, correct? The federal law prevents you from deporting this individual?
Well, I mean, this individual's not going anywhere, I can assure you that. He's locked up right now. There is no bail, and he will be tried here in our state. I know his brother, who had a fake green card, to my understanding, has been detained by ICE and the federal authorities. So I would, reach out to them as to plans for him. I mean, hopefully he'll be deported or detained and not released again.
Yeah, well, Georgia, one of the states where you actually cooperate with ICE. A lot of other states won't do that at all, which is then ICE has to chase them down later on. Governor Kemp, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Governor.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.